So today we're going to be covering possibly the most important topic of all, because I'm going to be sharing with you what I consider to be the most important skill in golf that you develop, and more importantly I'm going to show you a three-stage process and how you can do it in your game. So, what do you think this video is about? What is, in your opinion, the most important skill in golf? Be interested to get your thoughts. Hit pause, drop down there, let me know, and then I'm going to tell you in a moment. While you're down there though, just give this a thumbs up if there is anything in this video which helps you, adds value to your game and helps you out on the golf course. That really is appreciated. And also, whilst you're down there, you can also subscribe to the channel. It is absolutely free. You just need to hit that little button. And there's a little bell icon as well. Just hitting that means you'll be notified each time I do upload a video. And I really believe these videos can help you take your game to the next level. So, in my opinion, the most important skill in the whole of golf is ball striking. Absolutely, for me, this is the thing that every golfer needs to work on. I work on ball striking with someone if it is their very first lesson. The first time they've ever picked up a golf club is the thing that I start with. And I coach it right the way through to people who are aspiring to be on the professional tours. There is no golfer that I see who couldn't and shouldn't develop their ball striking. And that's why I think it's really important. That's why I'm going to share it with you today in this video. So, ball striking. Striking the ball at the centre of the golf club. However, we're not going to think of the golf club. Sounds strange, but we'll explain. Good ball striking is really all about getting the golf club to land and contact the ground in the right place. The right place being pretty much where the ball is, and then it would stay in contact with the ground for a period of time after that. So this first little exercise is really just to understand where we should be at impact and how that's different to setup, and there is a difference. Many of you who struggle, if you were to look at your impact and your setup might be there, impact might be there, they're going to look very similar. It's very difficult to strike the ball well from there. So, I'm going to take my address just inside the ball, and if I try to move the golf club head towards the target, pretty easy. There's no resistance there from anything, there's nothing to stop that club moving in that direction. This is the little exercise I want you to do. I'm going to keep my head pretty still, and I'm going to move my hips towards the target by some amount. I'm going to move the handle towards the target by some amount, and then from my kind of midsection, I'm going to start to add a little bit of rotation towards the target. Not a huge amount, but a little bit of rotation. Now, if you ask me to move the club head towards the target, or forward direction, suddenly I find that more difficult because the ground is now getting in the way. The more I try and move it, what you'll notice, I'm actually able to bend the club shaft. And that's because there's some resistance on the ground. I'm not trying or intentionally trying to push the club down into the ground. It's the fact that I went from what we call a setup condition to an impact condition. When I'm in that impact condition, this is dictating the fact that my club is trying to go down and underground. So this first little exercise is really just understanding the difference between where my setup is and where my impact is. Notice how when I'm doing that, my head isn't moving, yet my weight is going forwards, my hands are going forwards, and there is some rotation. And I really feel like this knuckle on my right hand is applying some pressure to the back of the club shaft, and that's causing the club shaft to bend. Once I start to scrape that club along the ground, you'll see that it will be in contact all the way to my lead foot, at which point it will come off the ground. So I really want my club to be in contact with the ground for, probably some 5 or 6 inches before it begins to move up into this impact position. So this is a great way for you to really understand the difference between where your setup is and where your impact is. That has to be the first thing that we start with. Once we do that, we can then move on to the second point here, which is how do we actually feel that in a golf swing. So this second phase is all about getting you to feel the right impact, feel the right strike. And for you to feel the right strike, the perfect strike if you like, speed doesn't need to be there. We don't need to swing the club at 80, 90, 100 mile an hour. We just need to be creating the right impact. So what we're going to do is, you can see I've got my golf ball here as I did before, and I've got myself an alignment stick placed behind the ball. Now this little exercise is really a case of taking your address, again, just inside the ball, finding that impact position that we've just mentioned, and then from here, making a little movement back with the golf club, and then just landing the club on the ground. So I'll do that again. There's my impact. Back, land the club on the ground. Back, land the club on the ground. And what I'm looking for is the little marks that I'm making on the ground should be pretty much in line with the golf ball. That means that if the golf ball was there, I'd pretty much be hitting the ball on the ground at the same time, which is really what we want. Ideally, it should be ground just after the ball, but ground the ball at the same time is absolutely fine as a concept. So this little setup here, I'm sort of putting myself into my impact. Provided I don't make too long of a backswing, I should find that when I land the club on the ground, I'm pretty much in that same position. So I'm starting to hit the ground from this really solid impact position. Once I've done that a couple of times and I feel like I can get the club to land in the right place, very simply, I'm just going to shuffle in and do the same thing with a golf ball. So there's my golf ball. I'm going to find my impact and I'm going to strike the ground where the ball is. Okay. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a very, very small mark on the ground where I was contacting the ground. You can see that the ball went extremely low, but it went straight and it came right at the centre of the golf club. I reckon that ball's carried no more than about 15, 20 yards, yet I was still able to confirm that that was right at the centre of the golf club. It felt solid. It felt like there was some compression on the golf ball. It felt like I was squeezing the golf ball and the club face together. And that's really what we want. So this little exercise for many golfers will be the first time they have really ever felt that compressed strike that we're after. And we're doing that by achieving a really, really solid impact position and then matching that to a delivery of the golf club where our focus is, can I land the club on the ground where the ball is? And again, beautiful strike, club landed on the ground in the right place. This is phase two. And I'd really encourage you to stay at that speed. It's really tempting to start to try and hit them, 80, 90, 100 yards, but you can see that these shots are going a relatively short distance, but I'm really starting to confirm to myself, where should my impact be? And how do I put a little motion to that impact to start to feel that really, really solid strike? Once we do that, we can then start to scale that up with section 3. So you've done all those. Started striking it well, you're getting all those feelings that we want, you're understanding it. How do you scale that up? Well, we need a little bit of feedback and we need a little bit of an external focus. I'm going to use this, which is called the Wedge Pro. And this is going to be something that I can use in practice. But again, if you don't have these, you can just get a little bit creative. You could still use the alignment stick, you could use a towel. And I'm going to place this, and the reason I'm using this is you can see it's at an angle. I'm going to place that just behind the golf ball. And again, it's around about that 1.5 club heads behind my ball. Now what this is doing is it's kind of acting as almost like a ramp. So what I'm looking to do now is I've just delivered the club to the ball from this impact position. What I now need to do is learn how to take my body from its starting condition to an impact condition and have the feedback in there and around me. So let me show you what that would look like. And this is kind of taking it really through to the golfing. There's my address condition. And I moved it through to my impact condition. Notice a big, big divot. I actually clipped this on the way back, if you'll notice, but I missed it on the way down. What that tells me is that my approach angle to the ball was perfect. And this is a lot more challenging now because we have got to move into this impact condition. We can't simply just start from there. So I'm learning now how to go from a setup through to a backswing and then moving into this impact condition. The reason the first two stages are so important is because from this part of your backswing, how are you going to move into an impact position if you've never felt what that's like, if you don't understand what that's like? So those first two phases are so important because once you complete those first two phases, it's really just a case of connecting the dots. You're making a little backswing and then you're trying to achieve something that you've just done and just understood. So let me show you that one again. Let's move that back a little bit. I'm going to take my setup condition back and deliver the club. Right, point number 4. This is the bit that ties everything together. This is the bit that people miss. Very often they can do that, but they miss this one, and then when they go on the court, it doesn't work. Where the club hits the ground It should be consistent. It should always be pretty much where the ball is, as we've discussed in this video. But if you think about where the club hits the ground relative to you, and it's you that's controlling the golf club, there is no consistency. Because some of my golf clubs are longer, some of my golf clubs are shorter, some of the time I put the ball forward in my stance, some of the time I put the ball back in my stance. So on all of those different situations, the club has to hit the ground in a different place relative to me. It's always in the same place relative to the ball, but it's a different place relative to me. So we have to be good at being inconsistent in what we do to have consistency in the results. Different concept for some, but it's really, really important. So we need you to challenge yourself in practice. Make it difficult. Try and fail, because that's how we start to develop. Put yourself out your comfort zone, because it means on the golf course you'll see the results. So this little exercise here, there are no rules. I'm going to give you an example, but this is what I want you to do in practice. You're going to take a setup and you're going to move the ball. I've got my 7-iron here, so I'm actually going to move the ball maybe one ball further away from me and one ball further forward of me. So my club has to land on the ground where the ball is, which is slightly further away and slightly further forward. So what am I doing now? Well, I'm using those ideas that we've done in the video, but I'm now starting to train my skill to say, well, can I make it happen from this situation? So let's have a little go. I'm not expecting the best golf shot here, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to get the club to land in the right place. And I would say that strike was about an 8 or a 9 out of 10. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good. Right, ball striking, follow those 3 stages. That 4th one is really important as well, and I know that you can start to elevate your ball striking, and it is, for me, the most important skill in golf. Thanks for watching.